I'm going to introduce legislation, Jesse, to make certain Mexican drug cartels foreign terrorist organizations under U.S. law and set the stage to use military force if necessary to protect America from being poisoned by things coming out of Mexico. So what would Lindsey Graham do? I would tell Mexican government, if you don't clean up your act, we're going to clean it up for you.
And at the end there, Lindsey Graham is using fun little euphemisms. We're going to clean up your act. He's talking about military strikes and perhaps a military invasion of northern Mexico. Let's be very clear about that. Let's also be clear that that is what people like Lindsey Graham were calling for just when we knew that there were Americans who had been kidnapped in Mexico. Now that we tragically find out that 2 of those kidnapped Americans apparently were killed, the other 2 have been found. That's the good news, I guess, but 2 died, and there are injuries for those who have been found. One can only imagine what they're going to be saying now. But obviously this is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy that they are going to look to exploit to rally their base again, to attack Mexico. I want you to think about how Republicans would respond if the Mexican government was like, okay, so these opioid manufacturers in America are producing so many pills that people are ODing, so we are going to bomb their headquarters. I don't care what little silly euphemism you use that we're taking care of a problem. It's war. That's actually what it is. From this party that loves to pretend that they've turned anti-war or something. Look at them casually talking about attacking our neighbors, Imara. It's ridiculous.
I mean, authoritarianism is gonna authoritarian. Like I think that again, when you are a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so when you believe that the way to deal with every single problem is by becoming muscular and militaristic and marginalizing groups of people, that's what you're going to do. And the Mexicans didn't say, "Oh, you're putting kids in cages, we're going to invade," or "Oh, you're detaining people, or you're human trafficking people, moving them from one state to another, we're going to invade." I mean, it's totally ridiculous. And I just think that there's actually no thought here. This is all gut and blood politics on their part. And that's the game that they're playing because they know that their base eats it up. But it's totally ridiculous, and it's an absolute double standard.
When you say that there's no thought here, I'd like to demonstrate how little thought there is here. I mean, you have Lindsey Graham, you have Bill Barr saying that cartels should be dealt with like ISIS. Oh, so you mean we're going to be involved in like a many years, decades long, interminable war against them? But I don't doubt that that's what you'd like. But if we're talking about no thought, I'd like to go to the queen of no thought, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who says our military should be stationed at our southern border. We should strategically strike and take out the Mexican cartels, not the Mexican government or other people, but the cartels. Yeah, just random strikes in Mexican cities, and they'll only hurt the bad guys because that's how missiles work. They're making billions, they're international terrorists, blah, blah, blah. Here's my favorite line. Our military is competent and should take them out swiftly. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Just take them out swiftly. The Mexican government really should have thought of that, I think. In other countries in Latin and South America that have dealt with cartels and stuff, why didn't they think of that? Just taking them out swiftly and easily. And obviously I'm being incredibly sarcastic, but here's the fun thing about a boneheaded, smooth-brained argument like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is making. So if we do her insane plan and start striking in cities in Mexico, it's obviously not going to take out the cartels swiftly. And then, oh no, what happens then? We get drawn into a long, drawn out conflict. We have to spend a bunch of money. That's what she wants. That's what all of them want. They don't care if we do it swiftly. They want more spending on the military. Isn't it convenient when if your idea fails, the people who financially back you win? Isn't that a little bit suspicious? Again, it makes one think that perhaps these are more obedient servants of the people in power. Any final thoughts, Imara?
I mean, I think that what's interesting is that they believe in muscular militaristic responses until it comes actually time to fight and to stand up for things that they should be for. The fact is that these are the same people who are saying that we shouldn't support the Ukrainians who are confronting Russia. Why? Why is that? Why not? That, a lot of this is about rhetoric and about posturing. It's not actually about doing. And Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't understand that the United States, has been in a multi-decade war with cartels, doesn't understand what the war with cartels did to Colombian society, killing hundreds of thousands of people, ripping that society apart, and how we were a part of that. That the response that they're saying is the response that hasn't worked. But again, this isn't about that. This is about stereotyping Mexicans and making the United States seem like the good guys. I mean, they've watched too many cartoons.
100%. Yeah, totally. By the way, this is what they were calling for before they knew that 2 Americans have died. It's going to be every single one of them tonight. And it is a tragedy that people were kidnapped. And by the way, we're apparently kidnapped because they were traveling to Mexico to have a medical procedure, because again, the American healthcare system is an absolute disaster and people have to flee to more civilized countries to get these procedures done in an affordable fashion. So now 2 people have died, so we should obviously invade America. What were they willing to do when way more people were killed in, I'll just say, Uvalde or Marjorie Stoneman Douglas? When people were being gunned down, not across the border, but here in our own cities, what were they willing to do? Literally nothing. They didn't care. They barely even care to send thoughts and prayers tweets anymore. So isn't it a little bit convenient? It really does matter where people die and under what circumstances for how they're going to respond to it.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.